bringing you all the latest Nottoway County high school and Bearcat sports each week.
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45.
Starring Aaron Sorensen and John Dykstra on the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast.
He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field.
Coming to you from the campus of Northwest Missouri State University.
Welcome back to another edition of the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Aaron Sorensen. I'm here with John Dykstra today, and I'm going to kind of just get the ball rolling right off the bat here and kick it off with my athlete of the week. That comes from the tennis courts, actually, a big weekend for them. They were in Rome, Georgia for the ITA Cup, and Franco Oliva placed third, defeating a guy from Bluefield State College, and this was the highest finish at the ITA Cup in Mark Rosewell's history here at Northwest. So a big week for them. John, how much does this kind of give them motivation and, you know, kind of put the tennis team on the map, as they've had a lot of very talented players, but definitely an exciting win for them?
Yeah, I know Coach Mark Rosewell last week was just excited that Franco kind of became that underdog story and won the ITA Regional Cup to advance to this. They haven't had anybody advance in a while. And then to win his first round matchup, he fell to the top seed in the second round, obviously, but then was able to come back and take third. It's a great start to the fall season for Franco and for the rest of the team. It definitely helps when your number 3 player can perform like that on a big stage.
The crazy thing is, as amazing as what Franco did this weekend, the excitement just kind of kept rolling for Northwest fans, and kind of one of the main stories of the weekend was the homecoming showdown with Northwest and UNK.
Yeah, Franco obviously picked up his third-place victory in the morning yesterday, and it just transitioned into the afternoon, and the winning kept coming with the football team taking on Nebraska Kearney. They just got off to a really hot start in that game and got 21 points in the first quarter for a 21-0 lead, and were kind of able to coast into the gate with that. Defensively, they were very good. They did give up two rushing touchdowns that ended the streak of 2 years since they'd given up a rushing touchdown. After the game, Coach Rich Wright said, "We knew this was going to happen eventually. It was just a matter of time. You can't keep something like that up forever." So he said we'll start a new streak next week. But just a really impressive win for them. That moves the Bearcats into sole possession of first place in the MIAA, which is always a good thing to have at this point in the season.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, to be on top again, especially with some of the adversity that they face, which I think to these guys at this point right now, they're not worried about, any of that, but it's very reassuring to see. And I just want to talk about one thing that we kind of talked about. The theme with this team is kind of getting out and striking first. And we talked about when they were away at Pitt State about taking the crowd out of the game early. How about putting the crowd into the game early? And the Bearcats really kind of did that right out of the gate with a 26-yard pass from Braden Wright to Marcus Andrews, the tight end. Actually, I was reading here, it's only his second career touchdown, so that's pretty exciting for the big fella to get that touchdown and get the game rolling.
Yeah, Marcus has kind of been a tight end in their system for a while now, but last year, obviously, Clayton Wilson was the number 1 tight end. This year, Marcus is the number 1 tight end, but it feels like when Chase White gets in there, he's that receiving threat. But it was a really nice catch by Marcus, or set up by a 50-yard throw on 3rd and 20 to Sean Bain to set it up, and then Marcus was able to finish it off. They got another touchdown fairly quick, and then the trick play with LaTroy Harper, who is just continuing to impress every week, actually got a double pass and then threw it deep to Brody McMahon for a 21-0 lead there in the first quarter. So just a great start for the Bearcats. And the defense held on. The defense was on the field a lot that game, more than they would like to be. And Braden Wright talked about it after the game. He said it felt like a loss because he wanted his offense to perform better after that first half, but they couldn't find their rhythm against a really good Nebraska Kearney team. This isn't normal years Nebraska Kearney team, or where they were picked 10th in the league to begin the year, and they came into this game tied for 3rd. Now they're 4th with the loss. Nebraska Kearney is a very quality team, and it was just good to see the Bearcats get a win.
And it's really exciting. We've talked about it a lot, and I hate to kind of beat the same drum, but the ability for this team, and we kind of talk about spoof hounds in the same way, to have so much talent around the ball that one or two guys don't necessarily have to do a ton or rack up so many yards, go over 100 yards, because there is so much talent and speed almost every direction you look. So to be able to spread the ball like that, and especially when you have a reliable defense, like you talked about the defense being on the field a little bit, it kind of puts a little assurance probably in the back of the freshman quarterback's mind that, yes, I need to get out here and work hard, but my defense also has my back.
Yeah, and they spread it all over the place. I mean, they had their leading receiver was Cody Massey, and he's a guy who's been starting all year, but Sean Bain, Alec Tatum, even LaTroy Harper tend to get more of the accolades, but it's the second straight week he had a long completion to him, and he just had a really good game, and that carries over to the defense too. My athlete of the week this week is Trent Nally, who's a former spoof hound, but he's a Bearcat safety, and he's kind of gone through some transition this year because went into the year as a primary backup behind Jacob Gassman and Jack Richards, and then Jacob Gassman gets hurt. Trent kind of splitting those starting reps there for a while, and then they shift the defense around and move Anthony Lane back there, so he goes back into that backup role. But it's just a testament to staying ready, because once Nebraska Kearney had to pass late in that game, Rich put him in as the nickel back, and he comes away with 2 interceptions to really seal the victory at the end there. One set up a Parker Sampson field goal, who Parker had a big bounce-back week as well after going 1 for 3 last week. You have some concerns about kicking there, and then he comes through and nails 2 clutch field goals in the fourth quarter to really seal that win. So just all facets really performed well, with the offense maybe being the most concerning. But anytime you get 27 points, you trust this Bearcat defense to really finish the job. Braden talked about being a perfectionist afterwards, so you would like to be able to be perfect and keep scoring the whole game, but as long as you can get over 20, I feel pretty comfortable with the way this defense is playing right now.
And yeah, this defense has been more than successful, and kind of how you talked about with injuries, it's one of those things they always say, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I think that's a mentality that Coach Wright has really put into his team, and all these guys know that obviously nobody wants injuries, but somebody's got to step up when it happens. And unfortunately, this team has seen injuries, but this team has also seen guys that continue to step up and fill those shoes. And just as a note that I also wanted to know, every homecoming they give out the Don Black Award, which is basically the MVP of the homecoming game, and Jack Richards actually won that this year. He had 12 tackles. John, what did you see from Jack just kind of stepping up and getting the job done?
Well, I gave Trent Nally my player of the week this week because I didn't want to double up on Jack, because I definitely voted for him for the Don Black Award because he was just all over the field. Earlier this week, Rich talked about how there's usually a safety that's unblocked in the when you're doing the triple option. It's up to them to make plays, and Jack definitely made plays. He's about the smallest guy out there, but he had 12 tackles, was really instrumental in slowing down that triple option attack, which the Bearcats did for the most part. They got one of their touchdowns was on a long pass. They were able to just slow down the Kearney rushing attack enough to hold on to that victory. So Jack just had a really impressive week. Rich always calls him the quarterback of that defense because he's so smart back there on the back end. Gets everybody lined up in that secondary that's got a couple new starters with, I mentioned Anthony Lane moving to safety, but Sharma Pierre and Jaravian Anderson at corner are new too. So some young guys to kind of marshal around and help out back there, but Jack's the leader you want to be doing that. So between him and Anthony Lane back there, the Bearcats are in pretty good hands at safety.
And the Bearcats kind of keep rolling here. It's been one of those seasons where obviously everybody's always ready for Northwest football, and they've seen a lot of adversity, as we've mentioned, but the ball just kind of keeps rolling for them. Next weekend they're away. They're at Lindenwood. That kickoff's at 1 o'clock. John, what do we look to see from that game?
Well, Lindenwood is leaving the conference now after this year, and I think part of the reason is because Northwest has really really handed it to them, and other teams have too. So maybe one more for the road for Lindenwood before they depart. They've been struggling as of late, and I see Northwest kind of cruising in that game. We're working our way towards that big Fort Hays State game coming up, so we'll see how that. And as just a fan of the MIAA, that'll be the game of the week next week, I think, is actually Fort Hays at Nebraska Kearney. I could see the Bearcat lead in the MIAA opening up a little bit more if Kearney can get the job done, because they were that impressive in Maryville. I think they could possibly beat Fort Hays if they're clicking on all cylinders. So we'll see how that one goes next week as well.
And talking about being a fan of the MIAA, we've known it for quite a while, but especially this year, I think a lot of people are starting to realize the amount of talent that you find in the MIAA and the strength of teams, and that kind of goes straight into the next kind of Bearcat victory that we had on Saturday over to the volleyball court. We've seen now multiple times that the MIAA is a conference that can have multiple teams ranked nationally, and the Bearcats actually got their shot on the road at Washburn against number 9 nationally ranked, number 1 in the conference, Washburn. They have not been beaten yet this season, and we've kind of looked forward to this game with Northwest to see how they would do. When Northwest played UNK at home, ended up losing in 5. That was kind of a tough thing for them. They went ahead and went on the road and swept Washburn, got it done in 3. That handed Washburn their first loss of the season. So that's a very exciting sign for the team. And being a Bearcat fan, what a Saturday that you had with tennis, football, and then volleyball, just to really kind of cap off the day. John, my thing is now heading into kind of the end of the season for this volleyball team. That last half of the season, this week kind of kicked off a little bit of a road trip, we could call it. How much momentum do you think this Washburn win will give them to finish off this road trip, and then they'll see UNK again at the very end of the season?
Well, I kind of predicted it last week when I said that a win over Washburn would kind of make you forget those tough losses and put you in that right mindset headed into to the conference tournament, and I really hope it has, because they are as good as anybody in this conference. They obviously taking Central Oklahoma and UNK to 5 is a great accomplishment, but now to just show that you can finish off a team and to do it in straight sets against Washburn, that's pretty incredible at this point in the season. They seem to be firing on all cylinders, and those are definitely the 4 elite teams in the MIAA. I don't think there's any doubt about that now. So just having that confidence and knowing that you belong, which I think this team had that confidence anyway, but just to see it manifest itself on the court is always a good thing. So just an amazing day for Bearcat volleyball to cap a pretty amazing day for all of Bearcat sports.
And it really was. And when you kind of talked about being a fan of the MIAA, that kind of goes all the way around with every sport. And you talked about how next week there's a pretty big football game. Next week there's also quite a big game in the MIAA volleyball scene. Washburn is actually going to play University of Nebraska Kearney. And those are those two kind of elusive top 2 teams in the conference. They've been back and forth in national standings. University of Nebraska Kearney has been 1, and then they dropped down to 4. Washburn was at that number 9 spot. We'll see what happens when they come out again this week. So right now in the MIAA, Washburn and Kearney are tied at first, and then UCO and Northwest are tied right there at that 3 and 4 spot. So your top 4 teams, it's all up for grabs. It's all right there. And I think, like you said, we have started to finally see this team kind of gain even more confidence, and maybe not just confidence, but believe they can hang in there with these teams and believe that they're no different. And it's one of those things we've seen help come through the entire lineup rather than relying on a couple of key players.
Yeah, and Kearney will be looking for some revenge in that game for sure. That's after they knocked them from number 1 in the country earlier this season. So that should be exciting. We'll see if Washburn can kind of continue its magic against Kearney. Some teams just match up well with other teams. Amy Worth says it every time. Every time they play Central Missouri, I feel like Amy tells us we just match up well with them. We're confident against them and stuff like that. So maybe it's the same way with Washburn and Kearney. I haven't seen those 2 teams play each other, obviously. So we will follow that this week. Just an exciting time for volleyball across the board.
It is, and there's a lot of weight on that game, and two fantastic teams. Debatably, Kearney has the best setter in the conference. Probably she could be one of the best setters in D2. Very, very athletic, very talented. Leads the team in a way that you kind of want a captain to be out there and lead them. So there's a lot of weight coming up these next few weeks for MIAA teams to kind of find out where they're going to sit heading into the tournament, and that kind of keeps rolling with Northwest. They kind of keep going on the road on Tuesday. They will go to Missouri Western, and first time Bearcat saw them at home, swept them in 3, but they've lost a few girls, but they're a team that you don't really want to mess around with, especially at Mo West. It seems there's an atmosphere there, and it's hard to explain. It's a tough gym to play in.
They swept them, but it wasn't a super lopsided sweep. Mo West is a tough team. Shelby Taylor's one of their hitters. I know she played very well in the last game. So they have some talent over there, and you don't want to take them lightly for sure, especially with the possibility of coming off this big win. I don't think this team will do this because it's a veteran team, but you don't want to get too high and then overlook somebody. So important just to put together another really strong performance and show that not that anybody would think it's a fluke, but just prove that you are who you just showed that you can be. So just a big week to kind of keep it rolling for the Bearcats.
Yeah, and like you said, you don't really want to get too high, and I think having this group of 4 seniors on that team will help them stay level, but that kind of rolls us into the end of the week. On Friday, Northwest will play Lindenwood. That's at Lindenwood. And then on Saturday, they will see Central Missouri again. They played Central Missouri already. They scrimmaged them before the season as well, so they know this team very, very well. But that's one thing Maddie said about Central Missouri, Maddie Bruder, when we had her on one week. She said UCM is a team that doesn't get too high and they don't ever get too low. So you kind of just have to be prepared and stay focused because, like you said, even though it's a great big win, these are still teams that you don't want to mess around with at all, especially UCM with kind of probably one of the most veteran coaches in the MIAA with Flip Pointek. Very, very smart coach, and he always seems to make things happen. So the challenges just keep continuing for this team.
Yeah, I talked about those 4 elite teams in the MIAA. Well, if you're saying there's only 4 elite teams, then Central's kind of in a tier by themselves there underneath, and they are very talented. They can come up and beat any of those teams, feels like. That'll be the biggest game of the week and the one that they need to be locked in on for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, I just want to touch on that, is being locked in is very important because UCM, like you said, they're one of those teams, if you don't go in ready to play, they will take full advantage of that and they will make sure that they capitalize. But really, and like we've said, a fantastic week if you're a Bearcat fan this week. But let's kind of switch gears here and let's head over to some Spoofound sports because Spoofound football kind of kept the ball rolling.
Spoofound football locked up the MEC title, Last year, they won state, they did all that, but they actually weren't conference champions. This year, they made sure that they got that championship, which is always their first goal of the season. You get 3 shots at championships. You get the conference, the district, and state. So they got that first one out of the way in pretty dominating fashion against Savannah. They racked up the point. It was the running game like it always is to kind of jumpstart it, but I was impressed with the Spoofound passing game, honestly, with sophomore quarterback Ben Walker throwing to a lot of targets. Kate Gustafson had a big catch. Eli Dallas had a really long catch, actually, in a screen pass, but it was just well set up and well timed by Walker. Tate Oglesby, it was really impressive. It helps when you probably have the best running game in the state, but you can also follow that with an all-state receiver, and Tate, he won't have the numbers that some other receivers do because of the offense they play in, but I would have a hard time finding any receiver that makes more impressive catches or makes more consistent catches than Tate does. He had a couple long yardage plays when they were behind the chains and needing a big pickup on 3rd down. He had a sliding catch. He jumped over a guy and caught it in the rain for a touchdown at one point for, I think it was a 14-yard touchdown. He was just super impressive in that game, and the team as a whole was impressive against Savannah, who came into the game 5-0 in the MEC, and they were hyped for a chance at the Spoof Hounds to try to take that conference title. And Maryville made it very clear very quickly that that was not going to be the case for Savannah.
And we talk about kind of fans of programs kind of wanting that sign, that says, okay, we're here. And to really kind of come in, like you said, against Savannah, who's 5-0 on the season, trying to come after that MEC title that the Spoof Hounds weren't able to clinch last year, and then getting the 41-7 victory. So it's not even, realistically, it's not we barely made it out of this. The Spoof Hounds came in, and quite frankly, they grabbed that MEC title and they took it and ran with it. And I think that's something that should be very reassuring to these fans in this team as they progress through the year to try and clinch 2 more, like you said, a district and a state title.
Yeah, they like I said, 41-7 kind of speaks for itself as far as the score. Tyler Houchin was very good. He had 27 carries, which, as we talked about last week, he'd been averaging like 5 to 10 a game, so they kind of used him quite a bit there. He got 131 yards of rushing, a couple touchdowns, the first 2 touchdowns of the game to really establish that running game. And then, like I said, Tate was great on the outside, and their defense really slowed down that option attack. It's a spread option that Savannah has, and they really shut that down. They forced 4 fumbles, just dominated a Savannah team that nobody in the MEC could really hang with before this, but they proved that they were definitely the elite team on the field that night, and they'll probably get another shot at Savannah, though, because the district this year, it's not the strongest district we've seen for the Spoof Hounds. They will pretty much clinch as them the top seed in that as well. And Savannah will likely be the 2 seed. They have a game this week against St. Pius X, which will be a big game for them to clinch that 2 seed. The winner of that game will likely get it. They would likely play again in the 2-3 matchup in the district. So just a lot of stuff happening at high school football there. Towards the end of the game, too, a scary moment for Spoof Hound fans is all-state running back Eli Dallas did go down with what looked like a knee injury. We haven't really gotten any more information on that yet. I'll talk to Coach Webb later today. Definitely no guarantees that he's going to want to talk about injuries, though. But going into the rest of the season and a possible playoff run, the health of Eli is going to be a big deal. He was on crutches immediately after, but then kind of limped through the handshake line, actually led the team through that handshake line. And then when they went to go get the Highway 71 trophy and celebrate, he hopped on the back of one of his offensive linemen and they carried him to it. So Eli's health is going to be a big deal coming down the stretch. But next week with the season-ending game against Lafayette, and then they'll have a couple easier games in the beginning of district play as playoffs start, a couple games that maybe they could get by without Eli. That'll be huge. So maybe they can rest them 2 or 3 weeks here and then break them out again when you need them later in this playoff run.
Yeah, that's always kind of a scary thing to see. We've talked about injuries with a lot of these teams, and you hope that Eli is not something that's going to keep him down long. But like you said, I mean, there's going to be guys that will step up, and especially if they have a couple weeks here where they don't need to play him and he can get that rest, that's a very good sign for the Spoof Hounds to kind of take a breath, let him heal up so that he doesn't re-injure or hurt himself in any way trying to get back too soon.
Yeah, Connor Weiss will probably step into that main H-back role, and he was kind of the other side, the complement to Eli and Tyler all year, and he's played well as a sophomore, and he'll probably step in there. And then you've got a lot of running backs that could take the place of Connor out there. Corbin Cook's an obvious one. He's a senior, played a lot of football dating back to his time at Northwest Nottoway, so Corbin could step in there. Tyler McGarry, who's a starting middle linebacker, could see some more time on the offensive side of the ball. Quite a few guys. Aiden Colin has kind of played a lot in almost mop-up duty, you'd say, but he's been very good in those chances, so maybe he'll get some chances with the first string here. They've got some options back there, but obviously when the times get tough, you're gonna want your all-state kid back there. So we'll see when we can get Eli back. Hopefully we can keep it rolling next week against the Irish.
And we've talked about it week after week, but the Spoof Hounds they are busy all the time with sports. So we've got even more Spoofhound sports to break down. Let's kind of take it over to a team who's had quite a bit of success already this year, a young team in the volleyball team.
Yeah, the volleyball team, they keep rolling. They will be playing for a conference title this week. They're undefeated in the conference, and so is St. Pius X. So they will play on Tuesday at Pius for a de facto MEC title match, as it's the last game of the regular season for both teams. So that's going to be a big one. Pius is first year in the league. I don't think they have that much history with Maryville, so it'll be interesting to see how well, you talked about well-coached like Central Missouri and things like that. Well, if you don't come in prepared against a Spoofhound volleyball team, those are the times that it seems like they really get you. If you're not expecting Serena Sundell or any of those girls that maybe hit like they do. So we will see how they do this week. That's Tuesday, like I said, at Pius. So it'll be a huge match for Spoofhound volleyball. And the volleyball district pairings have already come out, and Maryville is the top seed in their district. So that'll be going on the week after in Cameron. So that'll be a huge thing for the Spoofhounds as well. So hopefully they can keep rolling and like you said, with this young team, kind of advance further than they did last year. Last year they made it to that title game in the districts, and they lost to Benton in 3 sets. So hopefully this year they can get over that hump and maybe see how far we can take this.
Yeah, and it's been really exciting to watch such a young team. And you mentioned in Serena Sundell, she's very, very talented as a sophomore. That's exciting to see if you're a Spoofhound fan. Yeah, and we've talked a lot about these Spoofhound teams and how much has been going on, as well as the success that most teams are having. And one of those teams that we've talked about is the softball team. A lot of improvement came this season from them. We saw them do much, much better than we've seen in the past. Their season actually, unfortunately, just wrapped up last week in a bit of a heartbreaker game. But I think the positive to take from that is the improvement that we've seen from this program.
The softball season kind of gets going a little faster than the other ones. It gets ended here before the weather gets too bad. But they lost a heartbreaker 10-9 against Lafayette this week in the first round of districts. It was a 4-5 matchup in an absolutely loaded district. They were, like I said, they weren't quite able to get over Lafayette, who 10-run them earlier this year. So that improvement you talked about was really evident in that game. Emma Baldwin hit a big home run to give them the lead at one point. They really just battled in that game, but like I said, came up with runners on second and third, 2 outs in the final inning there, and weren't able to get that clutch hit when they needed it. But just a heck of a year and a lot of improvement from Spoofhound softball as they look to continue to build into next year, but also have 4 really good seniors they need to replace, led by, like I said, Emma Baldwin, Jacqueline Hirsch, and everybody else there with that team. So a great year to look back on with Spoofhound softball, even though it's tough now just because, man, you almost had that district win, but we'll fight on next year.
Yeah, and like you said, that's kind of a heartbreaker, but the positives come from the improvement that the team did see throughout the season, and to really kind of hopefully carry that into next season. As you said, it's always hard to fill seniors' shoes, but, Spoofhounds continue to stay busy, and there's a lot going on, and we're kind of approaching that, like you said, the end of a lot of seasons here in the final stretches.
Yeah, it's tennis is another season that wrapped up. They were obviously, we talked about their district championship last week, and they went to sectionals, played a absolutely loaded Marshall team, and filled them in sectionals. So that just wraps up the tennis year. They had a lot of seniors too. They only return 1 full-time varsity player next year, and then a freshman who played a lot as well. But they coming into next year, I'm not going to doubt that they'll be able to reload though, because Nicole McGinnis always seems to be able to reload with that tennis team. But finishing another very successful year for them. So a lot of good things came out of this season.
And, as unfortunately as all good seasons have to come to an end, good thing for Spoofhound fans, there's still quite a few going on right now. And one of those is the Spoofhound soccer team.
Yeah, soccer clinched at least a share of the MEC title this week. Well, I take that back. They clinched as long as they can beat Lafayette on senior night on Thursday. But they have beaten Lafayette 10-0 in their last game against them. So confidence should be high going into that game. But they did that by beating St. Pius 4-2, which was just a huge win for them on Thursday and gave them last year St. Pius ended their season in the district championship game, and they're kind of always that power in the conference. So to beat them 4-2, that moves them into a tie for first in the conference with Pius, and that's just a big deal for this team at this point in the season. Thomas DeStefano had 3 goals in the game to really lead the way, and Brendan Ware, another senior, got a goal late to really seal the deal. So it's really exciting times for Spoofhound soccer. And like I said, their senior night, which they also have a lot of seniors who have done a lot for that program and for just Spoofhound sports in general. That's Thursday night against Lafayette, where you can, if you make it down for that game, you'll be able to see a team hopefully put the finishing touches on a conference title.
Yeah, and it's kind of been an exciting season for that soccer team. And you talk about having a lot of seniors, kind of a scary thing at times, but also very rewarding, because when you have seniors that can kind of lead a group and show these underclassmen the way that the program can go in a good direction, that can kind of build a culture, as we've talked about, and carry all the way through. So let's kind of keep on moving, and let's head over and talk a little golf.
Yeah, golf is, like you said, coming to an end this week. By the time you listen to this, they'll probably be already on the course on Monday at State at Mazingo. They've got Monday and Tuesday the State meet at Mazingo. If you're looking to see some high quality golf out there, it's not a bad idea to go out and just walk the course at Mazingo and check out some of the Spoofhounds and some of the other golfers that'll be competing for a state title this week. So just exciting to see that. The Spoofhounds qualified as a team out of sectional, so they all will be golfing this week. We're just trying to finish as well as you can. This was the goal all year, to get to a home meet for the state title on their own course. So we will see how high they can climb in those team rankings and individually, with Laurel Wickersham and Emily Long both should be amongst those top 20 or so names in the state. So to have all 5 of them golfing at State is definitely a big deal for that program, and we'll just see how they can do this week.
And we talked a little bit about weather this year, kind of holding teams down, and things have kind of cleared up, but it's getting a little cold out. How do you think that's going to affect the cross-country team?
Well, cross-country is in their championship slate of the schedule, too. They've got the MEC conference meet coming up this Thursday in Savannah, which will be a busy Thursday for the Spoofhounds.
And that kind of wraps up Spoofhound Sports and Bearcat Sports here. Big week yet again for both. And some sports are wrapping up as others are kind of heading to that final leg or that final stretch of the season. This week we have another special guest, as we've kind of kept that going the last few weeks, as we talk about kind of nearing the end or the final stretch of a lot of these fall seasons. We look forward to what's coming up, and one of the big things that's coming up that a lot of people are looking forward to is the basketball season, especially Bearcat fans. We've got a men's basketball team who's had a lot of success in the last year, a season that ended last season, probably not the way that they wanted it to, but with debatably one of the greatest coaches in Division II of Ben McCollum taking charge. I think a lot of Bearcat fans are excited to see where that's going to go. And actually the women have a new coach, and that's Austin Meyer. Definitely a big change to that program, and I think a lot of people are very excited to see a young team with a lot of talent. You've still got a couple of those seniors who have been through the program to kind of add that, that knowledge, but a lot of young talent, and really a great team for Austin to get his hands on his first year as the coach. So we were able to catch up with Austin this week and get a little bit of insight with him on what he expects this season, as well as the transition to go from the men's assistant to to head coach of the women, as well as his newest addition of assistant coach, Adai Houston. He was previously a coach at Southwestern Community College in Crescent, Iowa, so a whole new look for this women's basketball team.
Back here on the Maryville Forum podcast, John Dykstra, and I'm happy to be joined by the new women's basketball head coach, Austin Meyer. Does that just sound, is that still getting used to women's basketball head coach? Just talk about that a little bit, Austin, if you don't mind.
Yeah, still a little bit new, but obviously being here now since April, and a lot of it early was just recruiting. Our staff. I'm really proud of our staff and just the amount of work we did through AAU in the summer and getting out on the road, and then finally being able to start practice September 1st, which only was 2 hours a week. There's only so much you can do in 2 hours a week on the actual floor. But we're getting settled in, and it's been really fun so far.
For sure. You brought in 5 girls in a pretty quick time span there. You talked about your staff, just how important was getting a die in right away to help you out, and obviously you guys have a history going back to the men's side too. So just how important was he in kind of helping get you into the women's game a little bit?
Yeah, he's been huge, from a lot of different things. Obviously his background with guards and playing the point guard position, being a Northwest guy. He did all the academic counseling and all that stuff at the junior college, wore a ton of different hats. And so he's got a lot of experience, obviously having been a head coach. He's just been tremendous. His organizational skills, his ability to relate with our kids as well. And then, little things like you said that I haven't done, coaching women, whether it be a time on a sprint or whatnot. He's been very helpful in those areas. And then Michaela Krall, our graduate assistant as well, who's done a tremendous job. And she's just been a huge part of our program so far.
I mentioned bringing in new players, but you had a lot of returners too, especially a big sophomore class, or freshmen last year, sophomores this year. What kind of buy-in have you seen from them as you've kind of taken over here and as you get ready for the season?
Yeah, we felt they're very bought in. From day one, we had our first team meeting, and a lot of it for us is developing that relationship, really wanting them to know that we care about them and we want what's best for them. Obviously, we want to work them extremely hard, and so it's one of those things where we wanted to develop those relationships first, and I think we've done that, and they've done a great job. Like you said, a pretty big sophomore class, so we have some kids that we want to take kind of a leadership role within that class, even though they've only had 1 year of experience. Obviously, our 3 seniors, 2 of them that have been here for a while, and then they've done a great job of setting an example and being leaders as well. So we're just really excited about things moving forward.
A lot of the youth on that side was in the backcourt, and you kind of added some veterans to that mix with obviously Erica Schuster and Kendi Eaton. How important was that going into this recruiting process to kind of get some veteran guards to balance out that rotation in the backcourt?
Yeah, I think it was big, and we didn't have a junior class at all, so getting 2 kids for that junior class was big for us, and I think just their experience, like you said, one played Division I, one played at junior college. Erica won at a very high level in high school. Kendi won a state championship in high school, and then won at a high level at junior college. So kids with experience that have won before, that know how to work, and those 2. They've been 2 of our hardest workers, and we've tried to stress with them as well from a kind of a leadership position. Even though you weren't here last year, you can lead by example in the tone you set in morning workouts, conditioning, or whatever it may be. And they've both done a phenomenal job.
I think people can kind of understand how you'd end up with Kendi being a local kid and everything, but the recruiting process, like I said, was a quick one for you guys. So how did Erica kind of end up here? And I think that'd probably be interesting to figure out how a kid from Minnesota and most recently Connecticut can end up in Maryville, Missouri.
Yeah, when I first took over, it was trying to figure out what the heck we were doing as far as recruiting and how to locate kids. So it was kind of looking everywhere we could and using different resources, and we found there's a lot of Division I transfers out there, but obviously there's a lot of those that are transferring for a reason, things like that. So we had to make sure we did our research and found the right kid, and we knew after talking to coaches and high school coaches and even coaches at Fairfield that she was a great kid. She worked hard. So we got her in on a visit, and she really enjoyed the culture, the family feel we had. We were a little worried when we had her in without a football game. When we can bring kids in for a football game, the atmosphere sells itself. So when we were bringing kids in April and May, obviously campus is a little quieter. So there's a little worry there that I hope it's exciting enough. But she really enjoyed it, and she committed, and we were really excited. And she's, like I said earlier, she's been great since she got here.
You talk about that football atmosphere, but your team's kind of helped make volleyball atmosphere or something. Is that kind of cool to see as a coach when they're embracing the culture of the school and supporting kind of their fellow athletes like that? And anybody who's been to a Northwest volleyball game, even if maybe you didn't know who they were there in the front row, that's the women's basketball team leading all the cheers, basically.
Yeah, no, and then they've been great. And if we can get, and I think all the programs do a great job, football, volleyball, whatever, maybe is supporting other programs. But, it was one of those things, the first game, we kind of said, hey, let's go out there and bring some energy. And honestly, as a staff, we didn't really say anything after that. They did it on their own. They were probably going to do it on that first game anyway, so it's nothing that we made them do. They wanted to go. They wanted to be involved and help their fellow classmates and athletes out. So it's been pretty entertaining to watch them. There's a couple times I looked over there and I said, hey, let's make sure we don't get injured over here doing anything too crazy.
For sure. And they've got, obviously coming into this first year, you've also brought in a bunch of freshmen. Late in the recruiting process, I bring that up again, but you were able to bring in quite a few freshmen. Just take us through that process a little bit and what that was like to bring in all those kids that you ended up bringing in.
Yeah, well, for our staff, we brought in the 2 transfers, and then Kira Mosley from Minnesota. The other 2 had committed prior to us arriving. But basically what it did for us, it brought us a little more size. And obviously we've stressed before, we're not going to be a real big team. So we're going to have to do a lot of the little things. We don't have 6'3", 6'4", like teams in our league will have. So, but the freshman class has been great. They've come to work hard every day, and like we stressed from day one, we want to focus on that process of just getting better every day. I know you hear Coach McCollum talk about that a lot, and there's a lot of similarities and things that we want to do on this side as well.
Is that one of those similarities? So you talk about not being very big, but obviously with you and Coach Mack's program with the guys, you have some size, but you have shooters and spread the floor. Is that kind of the same idea that you want to eventually work into here with the women's program? Yeah,
I think so. And obviously, if we can find 6'3", 6'4", but a lot of times at Division II level, those kids are going Division I. We value shooting just like we did on the men's side. It seems pretty elementary, but shooting helps in the game of basketball. So we want to get a lot of kids on the floor that can shoot it, and we feel pretty good about that right now. The amount of kids that we have that shoot at a high level. If we can get a stretch fours, kids that can step out and shoot at that 4 or 5 position would be big, and we just want high character kids that compete and want to have fun and kind of help that overall culture.
Is that some of the thing? Obviously, you're getting ready for your own game last year and everything with that, but have you seen that development out of some of these? We talked about that big sophomore class earlier with Jay. Obviously had a really good freshman year, winning conference freshman of the year and everything. Have you seen that continued development this offseason out of those girls? And talk about some of the ones that you're excited to see what they can do this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've all done a great job of getting in the summer. Obviously, as a staff, we can't work with them practice-wise in the summer, so a lot of it's getting in the gym on their own, and they've done a tremendous job of that. Jalen's continuing to get better. I think, there was a lot of pressure on her to make plays last year. I think that's why the 2 transfers we brought in will help relieve a little bit of that pressure. But Zoe Hayward's another kid that I'm really excited about. She's worked extremely hard. I think she could be a really, really good defender for us. Kylie Coleman, another kid that played significant minutes last year. Just trying to continue to get her healthy. Had a little injury, but trying to get her healthy and playing at a high level. As far as motor wise and playing hard and all of those kids, we've really tried to make our practices high tempo, going from drill to drill and just kind of push them as hard as we can in practice, because if we can make practice tough and harder than the games, we're going to be going in the right direction.
Does that just help having all those? Like I said, you're really guard heavy at the moment, so does that just make practice even more intense as you get into it here and get closer to the season with you basically got enough to field 2 starting backcourts, it seems like, with everybody who started last year, plus Kendi and Erica, obviously. So does that just make that super up-tempo for you guys?
Yeah, I think so, and I think what we're going to stress to them here when we start official practices Monday is just, we're not going to play. We got 13 kids on our roster. We're not going to play 13. So there's a competitive element of, competing every day in practice because you're playing for your spot. So we have, like you said, a lot of kids that can handle the ball, that can shoot it, and there'll be some lineups out there where we go pretty small, and just because we don't have a lot of size, but continuing to just compete every day in practice, and when we told them last week when the conference standings came out, the preseason rankings came out, we kind of went over where we finished in the league the last 4 or 5 years, and just said we want this to be a team that moves it forward, and it was nothing negative. We didn't bring it up to them to bring up the past. It was just this group right here can be the team that starts moving this program forward, and that's kind of the ultimate goal.
And that's that kind of leads me into that question that nobody really likes to answer at this point of the season. But your goals for this season, kind of coming in, you just talked about being able to just take those good steps as a program. Is that really it? Is there not really? There's probably not really tangible numbers yet you can put to it, but what are some of those goals, and what do you hope to see as we get deeper into the season here? Yeah,
sure. In our first meeting, one of the first things we did is we put a picture of a sold-out arena national championship game, and we said, for the program, that's the ultimate North Star goal. Mm-hmm. Are we going to get there this year? That's a little bit of a stretch, you can say. But we want to have that North Star goal as a program. That's kind of that ultimate goal. We don't write down 20 different goals. Like I said earlier, our biggest thing is get better every single day. But one tangible goal I brought up in our first meeting was, we haven't been to Kansas City in, 5, 6, 7 years now. I think that's something that we could shoot for. Find a way to get to Kansas City, get to the MIAA tournament. Which we know down there, our alumni, fans, it's a great atmosphere down there. So I think that's one of those tangible goals, but I don't really want to, as far as, you don't want to say we want to finish in the top whatever. We want to maximize the potential on our roster, and where that puts us at the end of the year, at this point, I don't know. Obviously, as you know, our league is ridiculously good, ranked number 1 in the country, Division II wise, in one of the publications, but there's really good teams. There's multiple national championship contenders. Obviously, a team that won a national championship last year. So, I think I know it's a little cliche, but just trying to get better every single day is what we want to do.
Obviously, you've always kind of worked hand in hand with the women's program, and you build each other up, obviously. But you've got a pretty good relationship with the head men's coach over here. So, just how nice is that you guys can kind of come work together and kind of build your programs together and maybe feed off some of the success that you've obviously been a part of with that men's program.
Yeah, and obviously Coach McComb kind of has a blueprint of how we've done things over the last 5-6 years, and it's a good one. And so we're going to do a lot of things similar, but I'm not Coach McComb either. I'm different styles, but I'd be silly just to say I'm going to do everything different. But no, it's great too because even practices, we have some class schedules in the afternoon, so we got to practice late a couple times a week. So it'd be nice to be able to go in and watch the men practice. And obviously he's a coach that's constantly learning, constantly growing. And so little things that we can pick up in practice when we're able to sit in there and watch. And he's always around to ask for advice. And what would you do on this? What would you do on this? And so it's great to be around him. And it's still, me, a little selfishly, it's good to still be around the guys in that program and not be somewhere else.
I mean, you're probably past this now with the girls, but did you sense that kind of coming in that at least you'd been around the program, they knew you, they knew how the men's program works and everything with that? Was that kind of advantage coming in especially with the returners?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously a lot of them are friends with our men's players. And so I'm sure a lot of them said, what's Coach Meyer like? And, I think it just comes down to trying to develop relationships, like I said early on, and help kids out and do what's best for them and try to make them better.
It goes beyond that, just still be on campus and be around everybody that obviously you've been around now for a long time, so how nice is that?
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously I'm a guy that played here, coached here, and basically haven't left since my freshman year of college. So it's close to home, close to family, and I love our support, our professors, administration, everybody involved, so I'm really happy to still be here. It made the transition a little bit easier when you're calling over to admissions or whatever. I know who I'm calling and stuff like that. So that's definitely helped. And then like you said, noon balls. Obviously, I'll take our noon ball over anybody's in the country. But no, it's fun. It's a lot better than the treadmill. I could play an hour of noon ball before I could do 15 minutes on the treadmill. That treadmill just seems like time stands still.
Pretend you've got a national tournament here of noon ball players. Every college in the country is going in. All-time Northwest. Take yourself out of it. You're a player coach. You're sixth man. Who are your 5 noon ball players you're taking into that battle?
Okay, I'm going to go, since he's played a little bit this year, so he's official. I'm going to go Justin Pitts.
Okay. I was thinking about taking out players, but there's a lot of former players. He's graduated now, so he counts.
Yeah, I'm going to go Coach McCollum. I'm going to go Andy Peterson, and then I'm going to go Zach Schneider, and then I'm probably going to go small at the 5, a guy that'll pass, screen, and rebound, and I'm going to go Adam Dorrell.
There you go.
With the long sleeve jacket on.
You like bringing that mentality to that physical mentality to the floor.
Wins,
so there we go.
Thanks for joining us, Coach.
As we mentioned, you can always keep up with those sports on the MaryvilleDailyForum.com. We will have all those scores, sports, and stories updated as we go, as well as you can kick it here with us every week and hear us kind of break down what happened last week, as well as look ahead into what's coming up next week. So as always, I'm your co-host, Aaron Sorensen. I'm here with John Dykstra. It's been another great week of sports for Bearcats and Spoofhounds, and we look to bring you more great news every week.
Bringing you all the latest Nottoway County high school and Bearcat sports each week.
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45.
Starring Aaron Sorensen and John Dykstra on the Maryville Forum Sports Podcast.
He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field.
Coming to you from the campus of Northwest Missouri State University.